Hello there everyone, it's me Harry, and today we're going to take a look at my PlayStation games. This is going to be the first part of a three-part series of videos where I take a look at all of my titles. And yes, I'm talking about the PS1, not the other later systems, but you get my drift. So, I'm going to start off with Tunnel B1. So this was a game that was released on several other systems, Sega Saturn and I think MS-DOS, and it was released on October the 19th, 1996. Published by Ocean, developed by Neon. And it's a shooter game. And it was meant to be two different titles, but the other title, which I'll talk about later, was meant to be an aeroplane simulator. But once again, I'll talk about that game later. Big thick manual. And then there's a nice yellow disc. The Saturn version came out a few months later, I think. But I don't know for sure. I'll tell about that when I do my Saturn Game Collection. Next up is Grid Run, or Grid Runner as it's known in the United States. Published by Virgin Interactive Entertainment, developed by Radical Entertainment. Published on June the 10th, 1997. This is a capture the flag run and gun type game, where you must try and grab all the flags as quickly as possible before your opponent does. So the back, obviously, it's what you'd expect from an early PlayStation title. Multi-language packaging and a big manual. And there's some information about Virgin Interactive's officers. Obviously, they don't exist anymore. And then there's the disc with the main character on the front. I don't know the character's name. I think it's unnamed from what I know of. Test Drive Off-Road. So this was the start of a revival of Accolade's Test Drive franchise. And this was the first in the Off-Road sub-series. So it was developed by Elite Systems and was published by Accolade on July the 1st, 1997. And released in Europe by Eidos Interactive. Featuring different tracks and some sweet music as well. Although it's obviously very clunky and it certainly hasn't aged very well in today's standards. Very clear disc. Nothing on the back. And some nice artwork of a Hummer. Next up is one of the most common PS1 games you'll be able to find. V-Rally. And this was developed and published by Infogrames on July the 1st, 1997 as well. So yeah, this is a very easy and common title to find. It was a very popular game. I would say the controls haven't aged very well, and yeah, the graphics look good for the time, but I just think the controls just ruined it. Here's the manual, and then you got a checkered flag-like disc. It's exactly what I said in the other video, and there's also some weather symbols as well. Next up is a very infamous 3D platformer. One that some people should have thought never would have ever existed. Bubsy 3D. Oh dear. The infamous Bubsy 3D. The game that gives me a headache because it looks so terrible and plays terrible. And there's not even any text on the back. I've forgotten who developed this game. Oh, it's never mind. It was published by Accolade and it was distributed by Telstar. Yeah, my copy's got a dent in it. Oh, Eidetic is the developer. Had to check the manual. I did used to have another copy of this, which I ended up busticating in a video when a couple of back in 2014. But yeah, this game is not good. Next up is Total Driving, or M6 Turbo Racing in France or whatever, and it was released under some other name and a different publisher in the United States. So this game was developed by Infusionix. I can't actually pronounce that name, sorry. A developer based in Gateshead. And it was published by Ocean, released on October the 15th, 1997. Oh, I forgot with Bubsy, that was August 29th, 1997. I forgot to mention about that one. So, yeah, another big thick manual. And then there's the disc, very yellow tinted disc, this one. This one actually is pretty fun to play, actually. Controls are good. Feels like Midtown Madness in some way. Now we have Test Drive 4, a game that certainly has not aged very well in today's standards. Developed by Pitbull Syndicate and published by Accolade, and was released on November the 8th, 1997. See, you got a Dodge Viper on the front, and there's a muscle car that I don't know. Beauty versus Beast is the tagline for the game, distributed by Electronic Arts. And then you got different vehicles. Yeah, but it lists down all of them for you. Shelby, Chevy, well, 3 different Chevys, Plymouth car, Jaguar, and blah blah blah. And then let me open this. Here's the manual, and then there's the disc. Nice tinted blue disc, this one. I like it. And we have Frogger. So this is the 3D remake of the classic Konami arcade game. And this was developed by Sony Computer Entertainment Studio Cambridge and published by Hasbro Interactive, released on November the 10th, 1997. Multi-language again. There's the manual. And then there's the disc featuring Frogger on the front. And there we are. It sold very well, but it certainly doesn't play very well, if you get my drift. Now we're on to 1998, so now we've got a couple more games. So we have Bust-A-Move 3DX, which is the enhanced version of Bust-A-Move 3, the arcade game, and the version for the Sega Saturn. So this version was developed by Taito and published by Acclaim Entertainment for the US and UK market. And it was released on February the 27th, 1998. So yeah, I always enjoy the Bust-A-Move games. They're always very fun puzzlers. But of course, nowadays, within the realm of app games, there are a lot of clones about. Candy Crush Saga. I mean, Bubble Witch Saga. Candy Crush is based on Bejeweled. There's an ad for Forsaken on the back. Acclaim normally advertised other games on the back of their game manuals. There we are. Then we have Lucky Luke. So this is a game based on the Belgian comic strip of the same name. It's also known as Lucky Luke on the Dalton's Trail on the PC. This game is not good. It certainly isn't good at all. It just feels like a lousy cash-in. It's published by Infogrames under the Ocean banner. This was by the time they were getting rid of the Ocean banner, and they developed it as well. It says published and developed by Infogrames on the back, but there's no Infogrames logo anywhere on the packaging. Here's the manual. There's a picture of Lucky Luke on the back. At least the artwork's quite nice. It certainly looks better than the game itself, and that's saying something. Nice retro-themed, like-looking disc as well. And then here's another game based on a Belgian comic strip. Is no good. This was based on the Saban cartoon of the same name that was based on the comics, where the main protagonist is actually the villain who wants to be the Sultan. This was published and developed by Microids, another French publisher. They still exist, actually. They re-released quite a few of the old Atari titles that were based on Belgian comic strips. This was released on June the 10th, 1998. Lucky Luke was made 1998. Then we got V-Rally Platinum. So this was a re-release of V-Rally under the PlayStation Platinum banner, and it included some features that were in the US version, which was Need for Speed V-Rally. That was published for Electronic Arts. So it includes a new vehicle, and then it's also compatible with the DualShock. But at the same time, it doesn't have any music. The original version does have music. Although both versions of the game are not compatible because this was an updated re-release of the game. And it has the same Platinum disc design that all other Platinum versions of PlayStation titles had. So this Platinum version was released on June the 10th, 1998 as well. Next up is Jeremy McGrath Supercross 98. So this was developed by an assortment of different companies, ATOD and Probe Entertainment, and was published by Acclaim. So this was the first of the Jeremy McGrath licensed games from Acclaim. The other ones were Supercross 2000 and Supercross World, which I have on the Dreamcast and the GameCube respectively. And then we have Viper. This was the game I mentioned about earlier on in this video when I was showing off Tunnel B1. So Viper is actually the flight simulation mode of Tunnel B1 that was split off as a separate game in development. And this was a PlayStation exclusive that was only released in Europe until it gained a release on Steam by its current owners. So this was developed and published by Infogrames under the Ocean banner. It was one of the last games released under it. It does say Infogrames on the packaging. The disc is very basic with a nice orange tint to it. It was released on July the 18th, 1998. Next up is a game that came out, I would say, around the wrong time as well. I think it came out on the same day, I believe, or something along those lines. Snow Racer 98, released on July the 20th, 1998. So yeah, Snow Racer 98 is obviously what the title says. It's a snowboarding simulator developed by PAM Development, published by Infogrames under the Ocean banner again. I don't know when this properly came out, but I do believe it was probably July. I always go by a certain website for release dates for certain games like this because they are very obscure. It's one of the few PS1 games that does not have any memory card support of any kind. Not even a password system, so you are essentially playing the game for nothing. It's a bit like old NES titles or Super Nintendo titles because they didn't really have game saves. But yeah. Next up is Heart of Darkness. So this was a cinematic platforming game. It's similar to that of Oddsworld Abe's Odyssey, which was published in a year prior by GT Interactive. And this game was developed by Amazing Studio and published by Infogrames under the Ocean banner. I think this was one of the very last games under the Ocean banner before it was retired. This was released on July the 31st, 1998. And it's a 2-disc game because of it relying very heavily on full motion video. In fact, the whole game is practically full motion video because of the way it's presented as a cinematic platformer. Test Drive 4x4, known in the US as Test Drive Off-Road 2. So this is the second game in the Off-Road sub-series. So this was developed by Accolade's internal development team, with Pitbull Syndicate assisting in development. It heavily relies on the same engine that Test Drive 4 used. It's not a fun game. And I mean it, it's actually not fun at all. It was released on September the 30th, 1998. So, and once again, EA distributed the game. It's kind of funny because these were meant to be the rivals to the Need for Speed franchise, but yet EA distributed Accolade's titles, and they continued on even into Test Drive 5, which came out about 2 weeks later on October the 9th, 1998. So yeah, you got similar vehicles. It's got some of the same vehicles and tracks from the fourth game, but enhanced a little bit. It says published by EA, but they never published Accolade's titles. They only distributed them. Test Drive 5 is sort of an improvement over the fourth game, but not by much. It still hasn't aged very well. Next up is Big Air. So this is a snowboarding game. It was also from Pitbull Syndicate and Accolade. I call it Big S Snowboarding because that's the original name it was given. There was another Big Air game called Big Air Freestyle for the GameCube, but that was just a port of the PS2 game MX Rider. So, yeah, it's a snowboarding game. It was what I think it was Accolade's last console game before the Infogrames purchase. They had a few other games that were in development, but they ended up being published under the Infogrames banner. And there's the disc, and it has even a little trademark fig on the back. Next up is Asterix. So this is a real-time strategy like game. It's called Asterix: The Gallic War on the PC, based on obviously Asterix, the popular Belgian comic strip. And there we are. Developed by Sorcery Development and published by Infogrames. Released on March the 15th, 1999. Big Air came out on March the 1st, 1999. Yeah, I keep forgetting to mention about the release dates for these games. Sorry, everyone. Yeah, next up is Bugs Bunny Lost in Time. Released on June the 15th, 1999. And it was developed by Behaviour Interactive and published by Infogrames. And it was one of the many games that Infogrames published with the Looney Tunes license. Certainly had a great selection. They really knew how to use the license for the franchise. So there's the manual. That's all, folks. There's a little catalogue that has Infogrames published games in it. And then there's the disc, which has the game's name in different languages as well. We have V-Rally 2. So, of course, the sequel to the original V-Rally. This was released on July the 2nd, 1999. And then it was later ported to the Dreamcast and PC. Yeah, the sequel to the #1 rally racing game of all time. Even better than ever before. Although the Dreamcast and PC versions look better. But that's obviously because the PS1 was weaker than those. Demolition Racer. So this was one of the few titles that was meant to be released by Accolade, but then of course Infogrames bought them out and then it was published under them instead. Developed by Pitbull Syndicate, published by Infogrames North America. Released on August 31st, 1999. Drive Dirty. So you're essentially trying to destroy all the vehicles as much as you can. Very creative game for the system, and it had a later North American only Dreamcast port called No Exit. Egypt 1156 BC, Tomb of the Pharaoh. So this was one of the many adventure games that was released by Cryo Interactive. So yeah, they developed it and it was co-published by Cryo, Canal Plus Multimedia and Reunion de Mazuni Nationaux. So yeah, this was obviously a French game about Egypt. There's the back, and there's the disc. It was released on September the 10th, 1999. And the last game I'll show off in this video is the Smurfs. So this was released on October the 6th, 1999. And it was obviously meant to be for very young children, but of course older children could play it as well. Developed by Halio Game, which is one of the other names for Doki Denki Studio, I believe. The same company that did the Tigger movie video game that I've forgotten. Tigger's Honey Hunt, I think it's called, or Piglet's Honey Hunt. So yeah, this is based on the Smurfs. Namely the original Smurfs Belgian comics. Yeah, and then of course Infogrames published it as always. So yeah, hope you enjoyed this first part of this video. In the next part I'll show off some more games, and there you are. Thank you for watching everyone, and bye for now.